Thank you. Yes, I got it. Thank you. I smelled it. Yes. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivajakacharya Sutotara Suta's Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assemble devotee, Hare Krishna. All glories to assemble devotee, Hare Krishna. All glories to assemble devotee, Hare Krishna. All glories to lotus feet of Sri Guru and Gauranga, Hari Hari Bol. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Tinamine. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 3. Rishabdev's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Navi. You don't have internet, huh? Okay, in the beginning of the chapter, Srila Prabhupada gave the Saransh of the chapter. In this chapter, the spotless character of King Nabi, the oldest son of Agnidhara, is described. Wanting to have sons, Maharaj Nabi underwent severe austerities and penances. He performed many sacrifices along with his wife and worshipped Lord Vishnu, master of all sacrifices. Being very kind to his devotees, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was very pleased with the austerities of Maharaj Nabi. He personally appeared before the king in his four-handed feature, and the priests who were performing the sacrifices began to offer their prayers unto him. They prayed for a son like the Lord, and Lord Vishnu agreed to take birth in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi, and incarnate as King Rishabdev. So we have today verse number 12. Someone can read translation? We have.
Dear Lord, we may not be able to remember your name, form, and qualities due to stumbling, hunger, falling down, yawning, or being in a miserable diseased condition at the time of death when there is a high fever. We therefore pray unto you, O Lord, for you are very affectionate to your devotees. Please help us remember you and utter your holy names, attributes, and activities, which can dispel all the reactions of our sinful lives.
Okay, purport.
The real success in life is Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the holy name, attributes, activities, and form of the Lord at the time of death. Although we may be engaged in the Lord's devotional service in the temple, material conditions are so tough and inevitable that we may forget the Lord at the time of death, due to a diseased condition or mental derangement. Therefore, we should pray to the Lord to be able to remember his lotus feet without fail at the time of death, when we are in such a precarious condition. In this regard, one may also see Srimad Bhagavatam 6.2, 9 and 10, and 14 and 15.
Can we go to 6 to 9, 10? So while you are finding it, Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhubhaya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, in this particular verse is describing that how one can remember the Lord at the time of death. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram tam tam evati konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. That as one remember whatever bhava, whatever their remembrance is, according to that they get the next birth. So here is describing that how would we remember the Supreme Lord. In this chapter also there is a point Srila Prabhupada made that a devotee never asks anything from the Lord. But here we see that King Nabi is asking the Lord for a son like him. So Srila Prabhupada says that that is also a material desire. And ultimately, because that is not a pure desire, because still you have some desire. You still have a desire to have a son like the Supreme Lord. And naturally, who is like the Supreme Lord? So Lord himself appear as the son of Nabi. So Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, here we have the Sixastakam, na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagdisakamaye, mama janmani janmani bhavatad bhakti rahaitu kitvai. So, devotee is asking only for a unconditional devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In the beginning we preach to people, and also our desire is to go back to Godhead, right? But ultimate desire should be that whatever Lord wants. If Lord wants us to stay here, then we should be ready to stay. We should not think that Lord may desire that, but I don't want to stay here. It's just too much trouble here. Right? I want to go back to Godhead and enjoy with the Lord. So it's there, but that is not the purest of pure desire. So here Srila Prabhupada in the purport also says about remembering the Supreme Lord at the time of death. And we have this 6th canto with Ajamil pastime. Number 9 and 10 is on the board. Okay, can someone read that?
The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection.
Okay. Next one is also, that's 9-10, and also Prabhupada mentioned 14-15. It's a small purport. I mean, yeah. No, 9-10. You see read all, both of them, 9 and 10? Okay, so 14-15, yes.
One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, jokingly, for musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all the learned scholars of the scriptures.
If one chants the holy name of Hari and then dies because of an accidental misfortune, such as falling from the top of a house, slipping and suffering broken bones while traveling on the road, being bitten by a serpent, being afflicted with pain and high fever, or being injured by a weapon, one is immediately absolved from having to enter hellish life, even though he is sinful.
So, Srila Prabhupada says that in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada said, how can we remember, right? And Srila Prabhupada says, therefore practice. While you are strong, in other words, while we are young, while we have some strength, because like it described that at time of death, it will be very difficult. Right? Different symptoms are described that, we may be choking up, our body temperature goes real high, our mental equilibrium is not there. Like what they say, right? We are not cohesive. So how do we remember? So Srila Prabhupada says that we should practice. And therefore King Kulushekara also, Mukundamala Stotra, Srila Prabhupada quotes many times. I'm reading the translation where the King Kulushekara is saying, my Lord Krishna, now I am strong. Kindly give me the chance to die immediately. Give me the chance, because now I can remember. But if I die in the natural way, when I am too old, it may be that kapha pita. Because this is the body of a three dhatuka, kapha, pita and vayu, so my throat will be choked up by mucus and I may be unconscious. I may not be able to chant at the time of death your name. So now I am strong, please immediately give me death. So we can see that how the devotee like King Kulushekara is praying, that now I can remember you. So I'm ready to live. It's better for me to live now than wait until I get old and I may not be able to remember you. In 1974, Srila Prabhupada in one room conversation says, at the time of danger, we remember providence or God. That is also good. So that in Hindi proverb, Srila Prabhupada is quoting the Hindi proverb, it says that Dukh mein sab sumiran kare, sukh mein kare na koi. Jo sukh mein sumiran kare, dukh kahe ka hoy. So Srila Prabhupada is then explained that if you have a difficult time, then you remember the Lord. But Prabhupada is quoting this. Prabhupada said, but if you always remember, even if when you are happy, then what is the question of unhappiness? What is the question of difficulty? In other words, if you remember the Lord, then there is no difficulty. All the difficulties are small because you get the highest happiness by remembering the Lord or chanting the holy name of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada is quoting also another time in 1976 on a morning walk. Srila Prabhupada has a disciple named Caitanya. So his mother was not a devotee, but when she was passing away, she was just asking Caitanya that she said that, is your Krishna here? She was dying and she was asking her son, is your Krishna here? And by remembering that way Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says that it benefited her immensely. Even though she wasn't a devotee, And there is another time there was one devotee, one of the parents was passing away, and the devotee was saying, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the parent says, it's too long, I can't chant. So we see how difficult it is. She said, it's too long, I can't chant. In the same time, she would have said just Hare Krishna. But it is very difficult. At time of death, it is not easy that one can remember. So our motive should be Ante Narayana Smriti, right? At the time of death, we can remember the holy name of Lord Narayana. And here Srila Prabhupada is also quoting from the 6th canto, the pastime of Ajamil, where Ajamil was such a sinful person, but because at the time of death he remembered Narayan, incidentally it was his son's name. But it is the same name as the Lord's name, and in his previous life he was a very good devotee. He remembers the Lord, and Lord didn't think that he is calling his son. Lord thought that he is calling himself. So Vishnudutta came and he had another chance. So at time of death it's very difficult. I haven't seen many people passing away, but I'm sure that different people might have seen, and if they have a different idea, that how difficult it is to leave the body. Because one is attached to this body. Srila Prabhupada gave an example. If I have this finger connected to my body, it's so much valuable. But if it's cut and it's on the ground, Prabhupada says, I don't care. It's already separate from my body. So similarly, the soul thinks that this is my body. And that's why in Vedic understanding, they burn the body, and they burn the body right away. So the soul also thinks that my body is gone. I got to move on, whatever it may be the future. Nowadays it's a different thing, the relatives live far away and all that, they keep the body, or in this country you can't burn the body until you get the final approval from the proper authority. But otherwise, in India, they would just burn the body right away. And it described that soul also thinks that this is my body. Because whole life we identified with this body. So this is very important for us as a devotee to understand that theoretically we understand we are not this body, we are not this body. But as soon as the time comes, we are not ready to give up this body. Practically it is very difficult. One can say very nice things, I am not this body and you got to understand this and but it's not easy. Prabhupada said that's the final exam. And it's not easy for anyone to leave body just like that. And there are many, many examples of how, unless one is a devotee. And Ajamil was a devotee in the previous life, that's why he was able to remember and that's why he was able to give another chance. And when he got a chance, he gave up everything, he just went to Haridwar and just chanted the holy name of the Lord, and then after some time he went back to Godhead. Look at Srila Prabhupada, how did he leave his body? Until 3 days before he was giving the purport on the Brahma Vimohan Leela, 10th canto, 14th chapter. So it say how conscious he was. And Prabhupada always taught us. I was listening Ambarish Prabhu, Alfred Ford, right? He's a great grandson of the Ford, who started the Ford Motor Company. And he was saying that when he met Prabhupada first time, so Prabhupada said, "Oh, you are a great grandson of Henry Ford." Henry Ford? Yeah. He said, "You are a great grandson of Henry Ford." And then Prabhupada asked him the next line. He said, "Where is he?" Right? You may be the great guy, whatever it may be, but what is the, every day, everyone has to go. There is no rain check, right? We can't say that, okay, well, give me rain check, I'll wait for some time, then I'll go. No. The Mahavishnu Maharaj used to come here, elderly, Indian-bodied Maharaj, and he used to give one story. He was saying in Baghdad, Iraq, there was one big sheikh. Sheikh is like a king, So he was there and he had one servant. So one day another sheikh was visiting him, so he told his servant to, prepare nice meal, and so he went to the market to buy something. And in the market somebody pushed him. So he was king's servant, sheikh's servant. So he was like, who is doing that? He looked around and looked at, and if he looked at this person, he got really afraid. So he came home and he asked the sheikh, he said, "I saw some weird looking person in the market and I'm very afraid. Give me horse, I want to go to the next town." So sheikh said, "Okay, why you are so afraid, But if you want to go, here is the horse, you can go to the next town." So he went to the next town. So sheikh was wondering, he said, "Who is that? Let me go and check." So he went there. And he saw one person standing there. And he looked at him and he also got scared. He said, "Wow, this is a scary looking person." So that person said, "Don't worry about it. Right now it's not your time. But I'm supposed to see your servant after 2 hours in the next town." I don't know what he was doing in the market. And who was that? Yamaduta. That was his death. So he said, "I have an appointment with this guy after 2 hours. Why is he here?" So in 2 hours he reached there, so he grabbed him. In other words, that death can't wait. We all have to go. We can't take a rain check. We can't say that, I'll come tomorrow, or I'll do this, I'll do that. Many times we cheat some people. I'll meet you there. Yeah, don't worry, I'll be there. Right? When we are kids, we do some prank right? And we say, yeah, I'm with you, go do it, go do it, go do it. And the other kid go to do it and you just run away. But you can't cheat the death. It's going to come. And we will have a next birth. What kind of birth it will be? Unless we remember Krishna, Ante Narayana Smriti, everything else is a zero. You may be Einstein, but the next birth you don't know how to write 0 or 1 or 2. So this is the reality. Anyone has any question, any comment, any correction? Okay, we all agree. Yes, Prabhu.
I always wonder about hearing this point that when one even just chants one time, they're immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he's not chanting seriously or anything. But it's maybe you could explain it a little more how that actually works, because it seems like people who they'll chant, they might even chant jokingly, but then it doesn't seem like there's much of a change that takes place.
Yeah. So the point is that when one chant, somehow or other, like what it says here, Bhagavatam, that even jokingly, even musically, we have seen it, right? That when devotees go out and chant, we used to go in Westheimer festival and people were drunk and whatever it is, but then when devotees are chanting, they also chant, right? You go to the zoo, I see some videos that the people come and they also chant sometimes they're having fun, sometimes they think the devotees are cool, But Bhagavatam says that even if one appreciate devotee, they'll become purified. Because this is the process. So when you say that, sometimes they say even they chant once, the once means, or the beginning means, it's just a starting, it's a starting point. One has to perfect it, but at least you are in that process. And that is why devotees go out and try to give Krishna to others, because that's how the devotional process starts. Otherwise, how is it possible for them to hear or understand ever without devotees? Like before Srila Prabhupada came, how is it possible for anyone to understand? Right? Even people who came from India, all of us, like many of us are here, we came here for what? Almighty dollar. Right? We didn't come here for Krishna consciousness. I don't know. Romapati, you came for Krishna consciousness? Maybe Nayanamrita. Only Radha Krishna came for Krishna consciousness. Because he was already a devotee by the time he came here. Yeah, so. Huh? That's why his name is Radha Krishna, yeah. He was in Australia. He was worried about Australian dollar until he became a devotee, not American dollar. No, we have besides Srila Prabhupada, how is it possible for us if we look at our lives? There was no Krishna. Yeah, you may have taken birth in India and you may think that, I know Krishna and I have heard Krishna's name from my childhood and, it doesn't mean anything. Srila Prabhupada says that, yes, it's a good birth if we utilize it. Right? Prabhupada was asked that there are many nice Christians and many nice Jewish or many nice Muslim people, pious. When they die, what happened? And Srila Prabhupada said they take birth in Krishna consciousness moment. Because they are sincere in their devotional service, they get a chance. Right? Jai Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav Radha Giridhari Giriraj Govardhan Gornitai ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada says that they all get the better opportunity, right? And many times, many devotees says that, by joining Krishna consciousness movement, they become a better Jew or better Christian, What do you think? Give him microphone. What do you think? Why did you join?
I just wanted to be happy in a way that wasn't being provided by the standard process in material life. And I didn't know anything about spiritual subject matters or anything, but I had a Bhagavad Gita that someone gave me. And I think I joined simply because there was a sense of shelter, and the chanting was very attractive, and the persons who were practicing were kind enough and tolerated my attitude. I was a little puffed up, but they encouraged me, and as I applied it, it was wonderful. So.
How old you were?
Huh?
How old you were?
22.
22. And you had no religious interest?
No.
Amazing. What about Gaurahari Prabhu?
Well, I was also in my 20s. I just didn't really have any guidance. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in life, and I had gone to college after high school. Didn't really have any particular interest. I just picked something and studied, and it wasn't that difficult. I kind of just skated through and got the degree. Things were pretty easy, but I had just cultivated bad habits in college through bad association, and I was pretty miserable afterwards. Still didn't know what I was going to do. But also during that time, I started getting into more philosophy, and really had this desire to try to understand things and learn about what is the point of life and who am I, and because I really was jaded with modern society, so I didn't really want to get involved. In fact, looking back on it, when I was on the college campus, a devotee approached me at one point, and this was just when I was getting into yoga, and he was like, "Hey, we got some cool books on meditation and yoga." I was like, "Wow, this is perfect." I was just getting into this. I was like, "Yeah, I'll take them." He's like, "Can you give a donation?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." I gave $20, but I never read the books. It took me like 3 more years after I had finished college, and then I had met more devotees and was just going around and associating with them. Then I finally realized, I was like, "Hey, I have some of these books already," and yeah, so I guess I was kind of getting breadcrumbs along the path, and then finally I had met devotees in full and gave the donations, so I got more of Krishna's mercy. And then eventually it just all, as I got purified more through the association, it really awakened my intelligence. I could really hear what Prabhupada was saying in his books, and I just decided that, okay, I really need to surrender to this more. And this is the only way I'm going to actually find relief to the suffering I'm experiencing.
You knew each other? It's amazing, huh? You know how your Guru Maharaj joined, right? You heard, everybody heard of it? No? Can you describe, or can you describe?
Well, I think he was in his 30s. I don't remember the exact age, but he was seeking spiritually. He had graduated from UCLA and was doing music, jazz, and different things, and he was very, very good and talented. But he said the Hollywood scene, when he was there, it was too superficial, and he ended up going to San Francisco or somewhere in California. And then it was also the music scene, and what he was feeling like would have been a little more a little more grounded. It was still superficial. And he ended up leaving that and going up to a mountain. I can't remember exactly where, but he was living on top of this tiny little town on top of a mountain. And he was there with his friend, what's his name? What was his name? Clint. And they would, they were talking, they'd look into spiritual things, and he would meditate, and he was reading a lot. He had books that he kept. And so he had the books on his shelf, and he was going through them systematically. And he would sit there, and one day he was meditating in his room, or in his apartment or house, and the landlady, who was like an old Christian mystic, she had been practicing, and she was really devout to her ways, but she was, I guess, in the town, and she saw the book, or saw one of Srila Prabhupada's books, or I can't remember exactly which one it was, Ishopanishad or something, but she found it, and she thought, oh, he might like this for some reason, although they didn't communicate or anything really. And she came and knocked on the door, and he was meditating, so he was contemplating whether or not he should open the door for her or not. He was like, well, I don't know, I'm supposed to be, I don't know, it's funny. But he ended up deciding that he would open the door, and then got the book and placed it at the end of his shelf to read it in the order. And then after some time, it went by, I guess, his wife, who was traveling deep in Mexico, was at a half-price bookstore, or some bookstore way down in Mexico, like not in a city, like common city or anything, but she was looking in a bookstore and found the Bhagavad Gita, or I believe it was the Bhagavad Gita there, and it was Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and she didn't know about the book that he had received already, or that he would, like, anything like that, but she thought, oh, she was innocent, so she thought, he'll probably like something like this, and she got it and brought it back to him there on the mountain, and he got it, and I think he had read different versions of the Bhagavad Gita, but he, a little further on, he was reading that one. He worked a night shift at I don't know exactly where he worked, but it was like a late shift, and he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and he read the verse, I think it was saying, this is the king of knowledge, or the king of education, and that it should be practiced. I can't remember the verse, it's must be chapter 9 or somewhere, but it was just so profound. He said he was reading, and hair stood up, and he went to an ecstatic state, and he was like, okay, this is it. So he found out the address to the headquarters was in like LA or something, and he didn't like that place, so he decided to go like way out of the way to another location. And when they left like the next day or that day or something, him and Clint, and he arrived there and everything was boarded up. Everything was shut down. They had moved. The sign said we're no longer here. But he thought it was like a dead end. He just drove for hours and hours, like 800 miles or something, to reach this place, and there was no one there. And he looks down the street, and there's a devotee on the street, and he's distributing books or something. And he runs up to them. He said he had a big long beard and hair, and he was like, Hare Krishna. And the guy was like, whoa, Hare Krishna. And then he basically got him in the car, and they drove, and he said, oh, do you want to come meet our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada? He's arriving today. And he's going to give a lecture at the temple. So he went to the temple, and it was ecstatic situation there with Srila Prabhupada, he said. And Prabhupada he had to leave. There was something going on in India at the time, so he stopped, and then it was like a spontaneous stop there in that town, in that city, because I don't know, there wasn't really planned or anything. There wasn't much like outreach for the program, so it was a very small, intimate group. But Prabhupada had to go really quickly, and as he was leaving, he threw one of his flowers, and Maharaj didn't even try to catch it, but it landed right in his hand. And he saw Prabhupada. He was just kind of stunned, and he was watching him. And then he chased after him and went out the door behind him and just followed him. And then the prasadam, because they hadn't offered it yet, they ran the prasadam out to Srila Prabhupada in the car, and it was like Jayananda, who I think it's his disappearance day as well. Yeah, I think it was his prasadam that he cooked, and then Prabhupada said, "Oh, I'll take it." So he took some, and then he shut the window and drove off. And the Prabhu who had the prasadam kind of looked around like he was going to take it and run with a Maha plate, but he saw Guru Maharaj there he said he looked like a light bulb. He was so
Mm.
lit up, and he gave him the whole plate of Mahaprasadam from Srila Prabhupada, and he sat down and ate it all right there. And so the rest
Yeah.
is history.
It's amazing. Jai. And also, Keshavapati Maharaj talked about it, that he wasn't too far in San Francisco. He lived only about 2-3 blocks away from the old temple where temple used to be. And he said he don't even remember seeing anybody, or so sometimes it's not the time, you know. So when the time is right, Krishna make all this nice arrangement for us. He is always ready to help us. Are we ready? You know. Prabhuji, you may say something about how did you join?
Okay, so I went to college to do like science, biology, and I was an atheist. I was like really against religion, and I thought like religion is for stupid people, and I was somewhat offensive. I don't think I was completely offensive, but I was like still, my thoughts were pretty offensive, and I was kind of going in that direction. But then I dropped out of college because I didn't feel satisfied, and I ended up moving to Massachusetts to work for my uncle. He owns a restaurant out there, and around that time I had some experiences with drugs that changed my perception and made me think that maybe I should get into spirituality, maybe there's something there. And so I started kind of getting curious, like looking into Buddhism, like meditation. I felt like I experienced something in that meditation, like there's more to reality than I thought. I thought like I was trying to, I could figure out the absolute truth just through science, and like we'll nail it down and figure it out without God. We don't need any of that like superstitious, like, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of thing. But then Krishna was kind of like drawing me in, like without me knowing it. All this stuff started when I got a book. I received a book on downtown Denver from a monk. And then after that, this whole slow sort of realization that God could be real started happening after that. So that was the catalyst. And I saw the monk on the street, and I was like, I thought the Hare Krishnas kind of were like a cult that had existed in the 70s, and I was just like, I didn't know these guys were still around. Okay. But then I walked up to him, and like he was like really attractive. I don't know how to explain it, and I know more about it now because devotees are attractive. But he kind of like drew me in with like, I was expecting some sort of like weird eccentric person, but really he was like just very calm and very like kind and very intelligent, and I wasn't expecting that, and I was like kind of like didn't know what to do, so he like asked me for money and gave me a book, and I was just like, okay. I was like impressed, very impressed. So then when I started getting into like trying to figure out spiritual life, then a whole series of events happened where like my whole life completely fell apart, and I was even thinking about committing suicide around that time. But then I picked up the Bhagavad Gita, and it was right at the perfect time, and I read that, and I think I had sort of been beaten up by the material energy enough to be able to hear it at least a little bit submissively. And so it all kind of clicked and put the puzzle pieces together. And so I was like, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna had kind of arranged things so that this was my only option, basically. So then I looked in the back of the book, and there was a temple in Denver, so I just went there. And I tried to move in that night, but they don't let people do that, so I had to keep coming back.
Yeah, thank you. So drug help you. Give it to Radhakrishna Prabhu. You want to know how he joined? In 2000 I was visiting in Singapore. Give it to him. In 2000 I was visiting Singapore, and I saw his father and mother, very nice family. But his father said, "So what Rajesh is doing?" Your name is Rajesh, right? Rajashekar something? Rajashekar. So he said, "What Raj is doing?" So I said, and I know that he was serving my Guru Maharaj, he was personal secretary. So I said, he's in the temple and, he's serving my Guru Maharaj. And, he said, "Yeah, but what he is doing? What actually he is doing? All these things are not as important. Is he earning money? Is he in a good job? So please enlighten us."
It's a long story. And in 5 minutes, yeah. But I guess I always was inclined towards spiritual thing. When we were in our teens, we would go and listen to all sadhus or whatever gathering. But really we didn't take it up because most of them were just temporary meetings and so on. Until I think I went, when I went to Australia for my studies. I was in like 23 at that time, and I was looking for books. So we went to the second-hand bookstore, and I was just walking around. At the end of the second-hand bookstore, there was a book, Krishna book. As soon as I saw that, I said, I want it, So, but when I started reading it, then I didn't like it because Prabhupada was always preaching, I said, why is this man like Christian, always preaching? It's like, but I kept it in my dorm, and I would read every now and then, So, and at that time, the devotees would come to the campus, and they would have a kirtan, and they would distribute some prasad. So I would walk. One time I was walking across, I saw them, so I went and asked for prasad. They only gave me one tiny sugar candy. And I asked the guy, is that all? He said, yeah. And by the time I was graduating, my brother also, we would speak occasionally on the phone. So he was telling me he got an amazing set of books on spiritual thing. And then I said, I think I know who it is. Then I mentioned Prabhupada's name. He said, yeah, I have the whole set. So then when I went back after graduation, I didn't get my job for 6 months, so I spent just reading Prabhupada's books for 6 months. And kind of, at that time, it was all set. I wasn't interested in anything else. And it was a question of how to give everything up. And so over the years, it took maybe 6-7 years, but the desire was so strong. Eventually, I was offered a job in Australia. That's when I took it because I could really do what I wanted to do. So the rest. And then later on, my spiritual master said, "Why are you still working? Give it up." I needed someone to push, and I guess he said it at the right time, and I just gave it up. And I didn't come here. He told me to come here. So,
Yeah, thank you. Radhakrishna Prabhu has a very nice family. His mother, his brother, his sister, they are all devotees. Yeah. Very nice. Anyone else would like to say something? Oh, we have a Sarva. Sarva stories are always amazing.
My parents took me to the production Hair when I was a teenager in the Hare Krishna first. There was Hare Krishna chanting in the drama. And when I went to college, my brother got into meditation and yoga, I was in Arizona and I didn't know how to do it, but I transferred to Berkeley and I got into meditation and became a vegetarian. I saw the Hare Krishnas, but I didn't understand their philosophy, and I kind of would avoid them when they would be chanting. I would go on the other side of the street. And I became a meditation teacher eventually. In the meditation group I was in, the guru one time said the Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest scripture. And then he had the Gita Press version, which was an English translation without purports of the Bhagavatam. So I had been a wrestler in high school and also had a scholarship for wrestling in college. So the first time I was in Switzerland at a meditation retreat, and these 2-volume Bhagavatam were there, and I just decided to open it up and see what it was like. And I happened to open it up to the Chandra and Mystika, the wrestlers that Kamsa had wanted to kill Krishna. They were talking to Krishna and Balaram. And what's that? Okay. So Krishna said, I don't think it's a fair fight because you're bigger and stronger than us. And Chandra and Mystika said, well, you killed the elephant this morning, and we know you like to wrestle with the coward boys, so we think it's fair match. So I thought, Krishna's a wrestler, that's amazing. And later I became a meditation teacher. Well, I was already a meditation teacher, and I went back to America. And I visited my high school wrestling coach, and his wife was high-strung, so he said, you should learn meditation. So I taught her meditation. Then he said, I have a book for you, because I know you're into this kind of thing. So he gave me Bhagavad Gita as it is, which he had gotten at the LA airport. So I started reading the Gita as it is, and I ended up, sometimes I worked for a television station in LA that the meditation group started. It was not far from the LA temple. So sometimes I'd visit the LA temple because it was so close. And Kalakanta Prabhu was the Bhakta leader at that time. So he would sometimes spot me and give me some Mahaprashadam. Be very nice to me. But I was afraid I was going to become a Hare Krishna, so I got a chance to travel. So I went to El Salvador. On the way we passed through Miami Airport, and I was trying to avoid the devotees, but Amaji was distributing books. But I got the Back to Godhead from her, and then she took Hare Krishna. That's a good, pretty much.
Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhav Radha Giridhari Giriraj Govardhan Gonitai Ki Jai.
This devotee would send me prasadam. Gave her my address. She would send me Back to Godhead magazine in the mail and prasadam, like sweets. And that helped me become a devotee.
So we don't have enough time, but it's always nice to hear how everyone become a devotee. But one thing is for sure, that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we all gonna have a better death than otherwise, right? That's for sure. So our future is better by Prabhupada's mercy. You agree with that, Nainamrita Prabhu? No, you were raising your hands. Jayananda Prabhu's Disappearance Day? That's tomorrow. Today is Rukmini Dwadasi. Today is the happiness day of Rukmini Devi, who is the principal wife of Krishna in Dwarka. And we have in Los Angeles, as Sarvabhauma Prabhu was describing temple, the deities are Rukmini Dwarkadish. Hari Bol. All right, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.